and welcome to a late night episode of Chai Talk with Wajatali, where I invite a subject matter expert to discuss a couple of big topics. It's like the sixth circle of hell, folks. Everything bad's happening right now. The House is deciding whether or not to advance the bill. They're going to advance it. This is just theater. That bill, as we all know, is going to be the biggest wealth transfers slash theft from the rest of us to the rich. It'll make the tax cuts permanent. It will pay for those tax cuts by taking $1 trillion out of Medicaid. Taking $1 trillion out of Medicaid is going to kick off 17 million people from healthcare. Hospital is going to close. You're going to have nursing homes that are going to close. SNAP benefits, right? Inequality is going to continue rising. And I was thinking about, I've been on all day, and I was talking to Zaki, my old friend from the Bay Area, film critic Zaki Hasan. He writes for San Francisco Chronicle, Huffington Post. He also has his own blog, Zaki's Corner, award-winning reporter, journalist, reviewer, commentator, and also a film and pop culture professor. And I said, what's a different way to look at this, which won't make me bang my head against the wall? It could all actually allow me to nerd out and talk to someone about Squid Games 3, which, me being Zaki, either the world's best parent or worst parent, I saw with my son and daughter, because my 9-year-old son really wanted to see it. So my wife was like, "You have a 9-year-old son. Your daughter is 6. They're watching Squid Games. What the hell's wrong with you?" And I was like, they gotta learn. But I also said, you know what? I don't know about you, Zaki, but like when I was growing up, my parents were the same way. They're like, my mom came one day and she was like to my father, "Our son is reading Cujo in Misery. Don't you want to say anything?" I was like 9, and my dad's like, he's reading. So we want to talk about the politics of resistance. I think it's really important that Squid Games Volume 3 is coming out at the moment that Republicans are going to pass this bill, which, Zaki, they might lose the midterms. They don't give an F. They don't care. The billionaire donors said it. It's going to destroy Americans. And then we also have Andor season 2. And folks, last week, the New York Times did this really interesting type of survey where it asked 500 directors, filmmakers, actors to submit their list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century. I'm a freak. I've seen like 87 of them. Or maybe I'm not that bad, Zaki. I should have seen all 100. But number one was Parasite, a movie quite clearly, as the director has said, is a critique of capitalism. So spin the wheel, Zaki. Where do you want to go? Squid Games, Andor, or New York Times best 100 movies of 21st century? Beep, boop, bop, boop, beep, boop. I yield the floor to you.
I think you've drawn a very cogent connection because they're all speaking to our moment, but also they are speaking to the timelessness of the human experience. I mean, the fact is, it's been 5 years since Parasite won Best Picture, and it was just as then. And Andor, which if you remember, before Andor came out, I was kind of texting you like, "Oh, I can't wait for you guys to see Andor. It's saying so much."
Before Andor season 2 came out, 2 days before, Zaki's like, "It's awesome." And I'm like, "I hate you," because I used to be on the critics list also. We used to get stuff in advance, but Zaki's still on it, and Zaki's like, "It's awesome. I can't say anything."
And I mean, that's kind of the beauty of great art, is that it does speak to the moment, but it's also speaking to the ages, right? And I think the fact that Andor is part of the Star Wars franchise is very relevant, because look, when Star Wars came out, the original film, George Lucas was very open. He's like, it's a Vietnam metaphor. The rebels are the VC. I mean, he was taking a somewhat subversive point of view even back then. So it's entirely appropriate that when you cut through all the merchandising and everything, all the Disneyfication, which some people have a problem with, I don't necessarily, but you have a work of like Andor, which I think is the truest reflection of George Lucas's intentions with that franchise.
I agree.
Uh, Anything that he himself, you know.
Yeah, so let's concentrate on Andor, and then we'll get to Squid Game season 3, folks. And there's going to be spoilers, but as someone has said, Danielle and I, my co-host of Democracy Age, did spoilers of Andor, but I didn't keep you all from seeing it. We also did Sinners, so we will try to. Hopefully, this will be edifying and entertaining and geeky conversation, where even if you haven't seen it, maybe we can entice you to see it. But Andor, for those who don't know, very quickly, right? And those who aren't Star Wars geeks, don't worry. The reason why it is resonating with so many people who aren't even Star Wars fans is because enough people know Star Wars, Jedi, the Force, Luke Skywalker, lightsabers, right? But as Zaki said, as George Lucas talked about it, right? It's the rebels versus the Empire, right? And clearly he was radicalized in his time by the Vietnam War and clearly by student protest and U.S. imperialism. Very clear, folks. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He was pretty woke about this. And the rebels, from what you and I grew up with, because we're old, Luke Skywalker, right? Chewbacca, Yoda. But you sit there and go, well, what about the rest of the folks? What about the people who don't have lightsabers, who can't fly, and who are crushed under the boot of the Empire? And that's what Andor does, right? Andor looks at that story. Just the average Jose's, Diegos, and Joes, right? Who are trying to survive in a situation where they realize they have no upward mobility. And we meet the lead character, Cassian Andor, who grows up in this situation of occupation, yes, I said it, and oppression. And he says, F this, man. I'm going to get paid. I'm going to get rich. I'm going to get my own, and F y'all. And so in the first season, he gets it. He gets his bag and he retires to like Star Wars, Florida. And he's in Star Wars, Florida, and he's chilling. And it's a great example of fascism. And speaking about the F word, Tony Gilroy, who was the showrunner of Andor season 1, season 2, is openly saying it's about fascism. It's about authoritarianism. He's not hiding it, folks. And in Andor season 1, Andor's chilling at the beach. And what happens? People start running. And he's like, oh shit, people are running. Well, I should run. And then he starts running, and it's just the irony of it. They say, hey, why are you running? And he goes, I don't know. Other people are running. He says, you must have done something bad. You're brown. Wink, wink. Surprise, surprise. What's happening in LA? ICE agents, masked agents, picking up innocent folks. Yeah. Andor season 1 was made before that. And on the nose, he shipped off to an ocean prison without any oversight. Does it sound familiar? And that's how he gets radicalized, and then he rebels, and then joins the rebellion, which then takes us to Andor season 2. And Zaki, if you will, give the plot synopsis of Andor season 2, and specifically what's happening on the planet, the occupation of the planet, and how I think that's very relevant to what we're talking about now.
Well, I mean, the planet that we see earlier in the season with the undocumented workers who are essentially being asked for their papers, and I mean, it's so on the nose that you'd be like, oh, did the showrunners invent a time machine? Go back. What's gonna be relevant when this is released? And because it is. It's eerie how applicable it is. But yeah, you have as you alluded to, you have the brown people, let's just say, who are undocumented, and they're essentially moving from place to place so that their papers aren't checked. And you have imperial officers who are using the fact that they are undocumented to essentially get what they want. And I mean, there's a scene, you know, which is leading up to an assault, which is the most graphic thing we've seen in Star Wars in that vein, and there's
The massacre of Gorman, the genocide.
Before even that, when the Adria Arjona character gets attacked by somebody, it's really, it goes into power dynamics between the Imperial officer and her, and it's something we don't see in Star Wars, but I think it's important that the show goes there because it takes Star Wars to a darker place, and I think, to your point, it allows us to sort of get situated to the types of mind games that we're going to see throughout the season, leading up to the massacre on Gorman. Just, I think it's one of the best episodes of television I've seen.
Yeah, and the Gorman massacre and the Gorman genocide, I think that's so important. I mean, speaking about being on the nose, Zaki, it's such a well-made episode. I'm forgetting what episode it was in Andor season 2, but you see the Empire fabricating a manufactured threat to unleash an assault on these poor people on Gorman just to pillage their resources. The resources are then gone, as we find out later, to create the Death Star. And the Gorman genocide is just a full-on massacre. And later on, you see them trying to suppress the news of the massacre, right? Obfuscation, lie, much like Goebbels, much like any other country, they literally are engaged in active disinformation and fake news type of propaganda all throughout the universe. And then it just takes the courage. And I think like we're just top of the head. I just called up Zaki and said, let's do it. Can't make this shit up, folks. Literally, in order to kill this horrific GOP billionaire bill, you just need four elected officials, four Republicans with a spine. That's all you need. Just four. And what they show in Andor season 2 is that there's only one senator who has to engage in so many type of life and death gymnastics to get the microphone, and then she, in front of the entire world, in front of the entire Senate, calls out the empire, and she calls it a genocide. Mon Mothma, and in her speech about the death of truth in a democracy and the embrace of lives, right, and the appetites of the voracious. Could she not be talking about Donald Trump and MAGA right now? Or forget even just Donald Trump and MAGA, the billionaires.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what Gilroy really tapped into, is he recognized the universality of this message, and that goes back to what Lucas recognized. When he talked about the prequels, and it's funny because there's been sort of a reclamation of the prequels, a reappraisal. When we were kids, people didn't like the prequels. I don't know if when we were younger, I guess we weren't.
I was in college. I think I was 19 when Phantom Menace came out.
People our age didn't like the prequels. That was sort of conventional wisdom. But what Lucas said, look, I'm looking at history. I'm looking at how republics have fallen throughout history. How do republics become dictatorships? And when you view the prequels through that lens, you realize it was incredibly far-sighted. Because there's universality to it. I remember in 2005, 20 years ago, Anakin Skywalker says, "If you're not with me, you're my enemy." And at the time, people said, "Oh, it's a critique of George W. Bush when he said."
And then remember the right wing, how dare you get, and this is before they discovered the word woke, how dare you get so on the nose, oh, you're anti-American. Clearly, he's talking about the failed war on terror.
Right. And what Lucas said, he's like, "No, I'm just talking about the human experience," and I think that same thing is applicable here. It's just, unfortunately, we're watching it right now and we're like, "Oh my gosh, it's about 2025." But if it had come out 5 years ago, it would be like, "Oh my gosh, it's about 2020." 5 years from now, it'd be like, "It's about 2030." That's just the human experience, and I think that's something Gilroy really figured out. He's like, I'd love to say that we just saw it coming, but that's the way things go in humanity, unfortunately.
And also, someone just mentioned the comments. It spread fast, so forgive me for the person if I can't mention them. They said there was also trade wars in the first Phantom Menace. Yeah, trade wars right now. That deal with Vietnam, in which if Donald Trump had done nothing, we would actually be benefiting more. But because of his trade wars, his new deal with Vietnam, Zaki, means we'll be paying more. 20% imports on Vietnam. Everything Donald Trump touches dies. But yes, there were trade wars, and the first one was called the Phantom Menace, right? It was just so on the nose. And I think what's so interesting, if you listen to Tony Gilroy, who's the showrunner of Andor and Andor season 2, he said, listen, all I did was study authoritarianism. This has all happened in the past. I just studied fascism. This has happened in Europe. This has happened all across the world. It's the same story again and again and again. And unfortunately, you have to think about it, folks. The fact that it's so depressing is that Andor, the conception of it, filming it, the editing of it, probably all happened in the last 2 years, right? And so here it comes out, and you're talking about occupation, you're talking about genocide, you're talking about naming the genocide of Gorman, the fictional planet in Andor. And as this is happening, I'm watching that, and I'm thinking, Gaza.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what's applicable right now. I also think, I mean, when we're talking about that aspect of having brown people who are being victimized, and that's something that really gets focused on. I think there's sort of a serendipity of having a Mexican actor with a very pronounced Mexican accent being the hero of the piece, because it forces empathy on the audience. And I think remarkable. I had the good fortune of interviewing Diego a couple of years ago.
He seems like a really cool dude.
Very cool. Yeah. I made him crack up, which is kind of one of my, like, oh, okay, like a genuine laugh. Pat myself on the back. Very cool guy. And one thing I asked him about, I read a story about somebody who took their father, who was an older Mexican person, who watched Rogue One. This is when Rogue One came out. They were like, he sounded like me. Did you hear him? He sounded. And I said, that was a choice. Like, you could have tried to go with more of an accent. And he said, no, I wanted to keep my accent because that's me, because that's my identity, and that is something that people can identify with. And I think there's such foresight in that what was probably just an easy decision for him, and yet it matters so much more now because it puts us in the situation where the hero of the piece is somebody who very clearly has an accent, who is very visibly not white, uh, and who is an essential hero in the Star Wars saga. So it's like, and
It's,
that's
and it's especially as you said, the spoiler alert for Andor season one. What radicalizes him is the injustice that is visited upon him, and the absurdity of fascism is that he doesn't get arrested for the actual crimes he commits. He gets arrested for being brown at the wrong place at the wrong time. And Diego Luna, the actor, who's very proudly Mexican, in touch with his roots, he guest hosted for Jimmy Kimmel last week,
yeah.
where the Fox News went after him because his monologues were on fire. Right? He talked about the need to uplift immigrants. He talked against ICE and the deportations and the terrorism, right? And so it wasn't lost upon me, Zaki. Well, two things haven't been lost upon me because Star Wars, when it comes to pop culture wars, I wanted to do, if you guys all like this, I wanted to do a new a segment with Zaki. It's called Pop Culture Wars, where like every couple of weeks, whenever Zaki gets time away from his 8,000 kids, I have 800 kids. Zaki actually has 8,000 kids. We jump in and talk about this. And so my wife just doesn't look at me and roll her eyes, because clearly I'm very mature and adultish. But if you guys think it's a good idea, let us know. But, Star Wars is a focal point for the culture wars, and it gets used and abused by a lot of bots, Russian trolls, to divide Americans. I'm not making this up. And specifically in the last couple of years, each time the Star Wars universe has tried to expand the heroes and bring Zaki, non-white men as potential, oh, I don't know, Jedis, you see an epic flame out and meltdown on social media from atrophied middle-aged men who want to live in a romanticized past and get nostalgia, friggin' crack hits in their vein and want nothing changed. And the reason why I think, Zaki, and I wanted your take on this, I haven't shared this with anyone. The reason why I think Andor was able to crack through with this multiracial cast, a very diverse cast, even the first lesbian characters, right, is because they don't have superpowers.
Interesting. Okay.
Because think about it. They're average Jose's and Joes, they're workers, and the Star Wars like fanboy community is like, okay. But once you give them powers,
Yeah. Like
once you make them the saviors of the universe, that's we can have Chewbacca, we can have Yoda, but we cannot have a female Jedi, Zaki, in this
oh,
fictional universe. I
well,
don't know your thoughts.
I think you're right on that score because I've seen for the last 10 years people going after Rey, played by Daisy Ridley from the sequel trilogy, and I mean it's just people are spitting venom over anything that character does or did, and it is exhausting, in a broader sense, and I know you can appreciate, like, at some point these fandoms become so insufferable that you say, look, if this is no longer bringing you joy, just don't watch it anymore. Like, you've got your thing that you liked, and that's cool. You got that. Like, let other people like this other thing. That's fine, right? You still read comics, I'm assuming, right?
Uh, yes.
There you go. You've probably had comics that you've stopped reading over the years because you're like, you know what, it's not really doing it for me anymore, right?
Yeah, but they can't let it go.
Yeah.
It is power, right? It's the billionaires, the 1%, patriarchy, white supremacy. For those in power, equality looks like oppression. And if they're suffering, damn it, you have to suffer, right? And it goes back to this whole cultural anxiety. It's so tight. Look, Steve Bannon quoted Andrew Breitbart, who had a really good quote that said politics is downstream from culture. And he learned that from Ariana Huffington, right? And so they realize Steve Bannon spent time in Hollywood. He made his money in Hollywood. He spent time in the gaming industry, right? And you realize, oh, the culture war, right? The culture war is where you can win over folks, which is why there's a reason why so many young men went for Donald Trump, because of YouTube, the manosphere, comedians, pranksters, wellness, fitness, pop culture, UFC, right? And Star Wars and Star Trek and Disney cartoons become like like kind of an extension of it, right? You're replacing us. One black female Jedi in one show means that you've taken away another Luke Skywalker, right? It's like you and me, Zaki, one Zaki Hasan. I remember London and America in the good old days when I could say names like David and Tom, and now there's a Zaki Hasan, right? It's the whole cultural anxiety played out vis-a-vis Star Wars, and it is a part and parcel of fascism. You always go after the lowest hanging fruit, and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And I want to take that and move it on to Squid Games because I'm assuming you saw Squid Games. Please.
Before we move on, one second. I just directly applicable to that. I remember a couple years back, I tweeted something about Rogue One, and specifically how Riz Ahmed played, a character Bodhi in that film, and I tweeted something to the effect. I'm paraphrasing, but it is a picture of him, and I was like, it. Uh, you have no idea what it meant for me to be able to take my kids to a Star Wars movie and have them see a Star Wars hero who looks like them. And I would imagine you had a similar experience. A lot of us
Oh
did.
yeah, I told Riz I bought his action figure. He said it was so cool.
Exactly. And I remember somebody on Twitter going after me saying, Zaki Hasan, he's critic with this. And he said he was happy that to see, heroes that look like him. And I want to say to him, it wasn't worth the price. I'm like, what price? You know? But that
The price of their temporary inconvenience,
Yeah.
the price of losing a white actor. Even though the entire universe of Star Wars, if you look at the first trilogy and even the prequel, right, the writers, the directors, white dudes, even Zaki, even the three, sequels afterwards, the 6, 7, 8, excuse me, 7, 8, 9, all white directors, man, all white male directors, and that even then they want more, Zaki, more, 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 more. It never just ends.
It's very Trumpian where to them somebody else being included means that they are being excluded somehow. And it's zero sum, and that's how they view the world.
Beautiful. Zero sum. And just to put a pin on it, just on what you said earlier today, it was revealed that Idaho public schools will no longer have everyone is welcome.
You believe that?
I do believe it because I understand white supremacy. Yes.
That's I mean, what do you do? It's like shrug emoji. That's all you can do. It's so insane that kind of story.
Yeah, it's just so funny. Like here we are. You can accept a freaking talking 3 foot, green Jedi monster, Jedi, excuse me, master living on an isolated planet, but a female Jedi, that's a step too far. You can take Harrison Ford somehow knowing how to speak, Chewbacca's language, who's like basically a big hairy dog, but my God, a black Jedi, no sir. And we're seeing fascism, right? Fascism goes after the marginalized. Fascism preys on lies and disinformation. Fascism goes after one, then goes after another, then goes after another. To quote the famous Pastor Niemöller's quote in during World War II, during the rise of Nazism. But what fascism and authoritarianism also do is they exploit the people to make money for themselves, an oligarchy, a kakistocracy, right? And what we're seeing right now, and you see this reflected in culture, is growing income inequality all around the world. And I want to talk about Squid Games Volume 3 by also mentioning a trailer that came out, I think, yesterday for a movie that I know you and I saw many, many times growing up. Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And Running
Yeah.
Man was a book written by Stephen King in 1982 in the movie that we grew up with. I saw countless times, folks. The story goes like this. In order for incarcerated individuals to get a chance at freedom, you compete in these games to death. And it's like a ostentatious game, right? It's like win or like what spin the wheel or whatever. One of these things with a huge budget and adoring audiences, and it's on a camera. And then these 6 convicts have to go through these gauntlets. It's a completely rigged system, and they have to face these mercenary killers who have all these weapons. There's a flamethrower weapon. There's a ice rink weapon, right? There's Jesse the Body Ventura, right? And the ratings go up, 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 up. It's like the Hunger Games. It was before the Hunger Games, right? So it's a Running Man is like the Hunger Games is like Squid Games. And I don't know if you saw just the timing of this. The Running Man reboot starring Glenn Powell.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that, and I tweeted this, the reboot. I'm like, yo. I tweeted this to Stephen King. I don't know if you saw it, but I'm like, listen, please don't give the Republicans any ideas, okay? Because that story that came out in 1982, Hunger Games that came out more than 10 years ago, Squid Games that came out, folks, a couple months ago, Kristi Noem
Well, look,
allegedly
no,
pitched a reality TV show
right.
where immigrants would get a path to citizenship if they compete in some games. And here we are, and I finished Squid Game season 3. I want your thoughts about it. Before I give you my thoughts, I want your thoughts. And as I finished it, I'm like, I can see this happening in America in 10 years. Zaki, I yield the floor to you on Squid Game season 3.
I'm not caught up yet. I'm up to season 2. I haven't watched season 3 yet. So I'm kind of I want to hear your take on it. I know big picture what happens in the season, but I haven't watched
Oh,
it
so you
yet.
know the plot? You know
Yeah.
how it ends? Okay.
I
If you
I
if you know how it ends, all right, I'll say this. Top level objective, not as tight as season 1. Some plot threads, uh, it'll be very clear they didn't know what to do with some plot threads, or they just left those to tease out the expanded version. Apparently, Squid Games is global, which makes perfect sense. However, a lot of people disliked the ending. And spoiler alert for those who haven't seen. In the ending, the main character, whose name I'm forgetting, he wins the prize in Squid Game season 1, but he can't live with himself. It's blood money. So he sets aside the money and helps some people. He sets aside some money for his daughter. And instead, he spends years trying to find the island in which he played the game. He finds his way back into the games. And this time, he wants to actually help the people, not make the mistake that, the contestants made the first time. And the big moral thematic dilemma of the game, right, is the creator of the game says, this is how human beings are: selfish, brutal, mean, self-centered. When given the opportunity to do good thing or get money, they'll do the wrong thing. And the lead character says, no, I have faith in human beings. Human beings are compassionate and decent, and I'll prove it to you, right? So this is where I'm one of the few people who actually really liked the ending, because I think it honored what the creator was trying to say, in the sense, and I'm going to share this with you. You're a Muslim. Just bear with me. I said this to my wife 2 days ago as we finished Squid Games Volume 3. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to connect the dots and I'm going to give it to Zaki. The story in Islam, much like the monotheistic religions, is the following: Satan, devil, Lucifer, Beelzebub, right? Actually, in Islam, not an angel, but a jinn, a leader of the jinns, who was one of the most loyal, powerful servants who used to teach the angels, right? Like creme de la creme servant, until God creates humans. And then Satan says, I don't understand. Why are you creating this species that will cause so much mischief and dissension and violence on the earth? And according to this, don't worry, folks, just stay with me. And according to Islam, God says, I know what you do not. Just trust me on this. And Satan says, I just can't. I can't bend the knee. So I told my wife, just bear with me before anyone wants to condemn me, Muslims watching. I get Satan's argument. Okay, like I get, rationally, I get where Satan's coming from, right? So for me as a Muslim, I'd be with Satan until God says, just trust me. I'm like, all right, God, you probably know what's better. Satan kind of went, I think, a little excess and didn't. But watching Squid Games and seeing what's happening in the United States of America with this bill that's about to pass, I sat there, I'm like, you know, yes, this is what people do all the time. Like, so the ending, the spoiler is the lead character dies. And the way he dies is he sacrifices himself to save a child, literally a baby that is born during the games. And before he dies, he looks right down the barrel of the camera and says, human beings aren't horses. No, we aren't horses. We are humans. And he says, human beings are ... He doesn't finish it, and he leaps to his death, right? So the reader, the viewer, then leads to his conclusion, what are the human beings? However, I told my wife, Sarah, he wins his own personal game, because he wins the game by never cheating, never abandoning people. He's been given opportunity after opportunity. I won't spoil everything, to cheat and win. And yet he always helps people. So he wins on his own terms, even as humanity keeps failing him. Sorry, I hope that was helpful. Zaki, your
Yeah.
take on Squid Games.
I love, well, actually, before we even proceed, I just want to say, I hope you never run for office, because every Oppo ad is just going to be you saying, Satan had a point. So,
I mean, I kind of see where Satan was coming from for the first half.
what Jahad Ali says, I see where Satan was coming from.
Would you have to leave for Satan?
I think what captivates people about Squid Game, what keeps, now we've got the American version coming, is it has that great "what would you do" energy. I think that's what it really does. Is it asks you, who would you be in this situation? And I think it's a hard show to watch, man. It really is because it
Bro,
exposes.
season 3 is beyond brutal. Beyond
Yeah,
brutal.
that's why I've been like, all right, I need to be in like the right headspace. And this is all my kids are watching it, right? Which is like really, yeah, like we're talking, like I don't know what that says about us, but like
Maybe we're bad parents and our wives are their wives. My wife's like, why do you make them watch this? I'm like, they have to learn. Like, learn what about the human condition? No, but continue.
no, but I mean that we are complex, right? I think that's what's like we'd like to believe we are the person who'd be honorable, and it's when we look at what's happening in Congress now, right, which is its own freaking kind of political Squid Game. It's like every time you think somebody will have character, will evince the character, this is wrong. We're not horses. They fold under, whether it's Holly or Murkowski, or I mean, you name it. Every single one of these people who you think, well, you were so firm about what you will or will not do. There's no way. And then they just buckle under. And I think Squid Game, to a large extent, it's creating a scenario that's obviously hyper realistic, but it helps, it clarifies things in terms of really creating these stark moral choices.
Yeah.
And it's trying to teach us something. I don't know if people are getting what it's trying to teach us. I think people are just sort of people are watching it like people who watch the Running Man in the movie. That's what I worry about. Like, you know,
Well, that's the fear, but I think there's a reason why so many of us have this pit in our stomach while we're watching Squid Game season 3 or Andor. Is it's too real. It's not just escape. It's not just fiction. Even you who watch this for a living, you're like, bro, I need to take it and like my wife. It says like I can't, like I have to step away. I'm just the masochist. I'm like my wife's like, you're a psychopath. What's wrong with you? I love horror movies, gore. Like everyone's like, why are you such a freak? I'm like, I have no idea why I'm built this way. Must go forward. But I think the fact that you can't just remove it, right? Hunger Games. Oh, this is silly. And now they're like, oh shit, there might be Hunger Games in America. Like, 17 million people are about to lose their health care just so the rich could get richer. And the Republicans know it'll cost them in the 2026 midterms. And they don't care, Zaki. They don't care. They don't care that their own base is going to die and is going to be begging for health care, for food snaps. They won't have hospitals, 25% of nursing homes. We're going to kill our elders, folks, and they don't care. And so then you see a Squid Games or a Running Man or a Hunger Games, and you're like, yeah, is this too far away? I don't know if I can enjoy this because this seems to be a reflection of the United States of America. When I see Andor, I see them shipped off, kidnapped literally, and deported to an offshore prison. I just saw Donald Trump Republicans praise friggin' a concentration camp in Florida where in 8 days, somehow the Trump administration found money to make alligator Alcatraz in the path of a hurricane surrounded by alligators, but we don't have money for infrastructure,
yeah,
Zaki. And so this is why I think, it's weighing on us. Like, oh shit, this is not just dystopia. This is not dystopian fiction. This is far more close to reality than we can imagine. I think that's why. And I want to
yeah,
take it now to this New York Times. I want to talk to someone about this. New York Times folks did this best 100 movies of the 21st century. We're so old that it's 2025. I'm like, 21st century? Oh, crap. Yeah,
right.
it's crazy. And they asked 500 people, like, directors and writers, and some of these people shared their lists. I'm going to read 10 to 1. All right. This is the New York Times, according to New York Times, 500 plus people, experts, professionals in the field of cinema and art and creativity. These are the greatest movies that have been released in the 21st century. Number 10, Social Network. Number 9, Spirited Away. Number 8, Get Out. Number 7, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Number 6, No Country for Old Men. Number 5, Moonlight. Number 4, In the Mood for Love. Just made it, 2001. Number 3, There Will Be Blood. Number 2, love this movie, saw it 24 years ago, Mulholland Drive. And number 1, Parasite. Before we get into Parasite, your commentary on that 10 list.
I think it's a very solid list. I think I definitely those are the movies that stay with you. It's always fascinating to look at the movies that are deemed uh, significant in the moment, and then when you have a quarter century of distance, you say, well, we don't really think about this, or like there's stuff that has not held up from the turn of the century. And when we look at, gosh, like what was number 10? That was Social Network, right?
Social Network.
Social Network is like more relevant now than 15 years ago,
There's a
right?
sequel coming out. Apparently, Aaron Sorkin's going to write a sequel.
I just saw that. Yeah, he's going to direct it too. Which is, I mean, at the time, I remember when Social Network came out. There was a lot of like, oh, poor Mark Zuckerberg. The movie is unfair and how it depicts him,
I
and
remember that.
right, and now you're like, bro, he's worse. Like,
Now he's a UFC bro, and like
yeah,
just openly,
yeah,
openly evil. He's like openly supervillain.
yeah. It's that's what's very funny to me is we're in this age now where where Jeff Bezos owns James Bond, and I'm like, can Blofeld not own 007, please? Like, so all like these
James Bond is like, Blofeld has a point. He's not that bad.
007 supports Blofeld. Do you want him representing? Yeah. I mean, that's the fact that the Social Network at the time, it was decried at being an exaggeration, and it was just Sorkin being Sorkin. And meanwhile, I'm like, please, I'm all about Sorkin being Sorkin. Give me more Sorkin being Sorkin. I'm a big fan of his. But it had remarkable foresight.
And also, if you remember, because you and me are nerds and we remember random shit like this, Fincher and Sorkin, when they were doing the press tour for Social Network, Fincher like said, you know, because Sorkin got into too much of a Sorkin reality of Sorkin's Zuckerberg, which is actually seems closer to reality. But even Fincher said, "Oh, he's a brilliant man." Speaking about Mark Zuckerberg, right? This adulation of these tech billionaires who are going to save us, Zucky, right? And now it's like, nope, straight up Bond supervillains. And now a Bond supervillain has bought Bond. Jeff Bezos, who just did a $50 million wedding. And speaking, I don't know if you saw earlier today, Indiana Jones, they're announcing a complete fresh reboot of Indiana Jones, starring a younger Indiana Jones. Disney owns it, and I say this without hyperbole. Indiana Jones was known for punching Nazis. In this new reboot, to cater to both sides, he's probably going to just, I don't know, have an adventure with Nazis, like, both sides with Nazis. There'll be a nice Nazi. There'll be like Nazi short round.
Is that a real thing? They announced that? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, yeah. There's an announcement that they're planning into. It's a rumor, but apparently it got enough traction that they're really looking into a fresh reboot.
You know, okay. So I know this wasn't on the agenda, but I'm like, at least like wait till Harrison is gone. You know what I mean? It's going to happen. It's an IP. It's like I've resigned myself to that, but I'm also like, as
You
long
gotta wait till he goes. I said the same thing.
as he's alive, he's Indiana Jones, and I don't mean he should play him again. I mean he is like, let's at least let him, not have to witness it.
Not witness Indiana Jones engaging in a both sides conversation with a Nazi, which will be the new Disney. You think I'm joking? I don't think I am. And of
I,
course, they won't say anything bad against China because they need China's money to make back its profit. So I'm really curious to see who the new bad guy is in Indiana Jones. Who could it be? Ain't gonna be Nazis. I wanna actually, before we get to Parasite, because I think pop culture not only reflects the conversation, it also influences the conversation, right? I always said, if you want to understand the United States of America, and you had to pick 5 movies, Zaki, one of the movies I would tell is Aliens. Aliens came and said, give us 5 movies to understand the United States of America. And July 4th is coming up. Top 5, pretty close to the top, I would say Birth of a Nation.
there was
1915, D.W. Griffith, right? And that movie was so influential, so on point, to explain white anxiety, white lash, white rage, white supremacy. That Woodrow Wilson loved that movie. That movie was the Titanic and the Avatar of its day. And that movie shows, I'm not making this up, the poor white man who was besieged as a result of these blacks getting their freedom, and how during Reconstruction, the blacks getting their freedom oppressed the white men, and the blacks, once they got their freedom, they went after the white women. So these poor white victims had to join the Ku Klux Klan and reclaim the honor of their white. I'm not making this up, folks. This was a movie that was filmed, they aired it in the White House. Woodrow Wilson loved it. It single-handedly revitalized the KKK.
He called it history written with lightning. That's what Wilson said.
Great quote. History written with light, right? So I want to give you 15 to 10 also because I think it's interesting. City of God, number 15, fantastic movie. 14, Inglorious Bastards.
Oh, for sure.
A
Yeah.
movie, if you ever want to see the Nazis get killed, at least we'll always have Inglorious Bastards. What I thought was one of the best movies I told everyone about, I'm so glad it picked up with time, a legacy. Children of Men.
Oh yeah,
Speaking
fantastic.
about being on the effing nose, see Children of Men, folks. Number 12, speaking about on the nose, Zone of Interest.
Yep.
And number 11, what I thought should have won Best Picture and Best Director, no disrespect to Spotlight, one of the greatest action movies made in the past 25 years,
Yep.
Mad Max Fury Road, which should be also pretty topical in 20 years if we go the way we do.
I love Fury Road. However, I have to say I love Spotlight. I like that was my when I did my critic listing. That was my pick for number one movie of
And
that.
I remember I disagreed with you, and I
Yeah,
still do.
I literally I'm screening Spotlight in my class next because it's such an important example of journalism and what we need desperately right now. But no, Mad Max Fury Road is it's one of a kind. Like that's what's like even Furiosa, which I liked a lot, it just couldn't recapture what Fury Road did, you know? What was great to me is like George Miller was what in his like 70s when he did
He's
that,
in his 70s.
right? And he 30 years. It's like he waited 30 years for his after Beyond Thunderdome, and it's like it was the buildup was worth it, you know.
It's
And
Witness Me. It was awesome.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, and so, but what's interesting, folks, going back to number one, look, all these movies we mentioned, I love these movies. I think it's a very good list for the most part. Number one, Parasite. And for those who haven't seen Parasite, strongly recommend you see it. Brilliant writing, brilliant directing. The movie, quite literally, is about the sinful effects of capitalism. That's not my words. That's Bong Joon-ho's words. He talked about it as a critique of capitalism, the system that just destroys and crushes people. And it has a brilliant opening and closing shot, right? The opening shot, like the camera pans down, and you're like, "Are you going in a basement?" And it's not. The top half of the screen shows you the street, so you get to see the outside. And then the kind of the bottom 2/3 is this half basement apartment home that they live in, right? So it's almost like you get to peek, right? One day, Zaki, I might be able to go to the street. One day. And then the movie just gut punch. It ends that it's inescapable. It's inescapable. And the kid has a dream, but you realize the dream is a pipe dream. It's never achievable. The money that he can get, to free his father, I won't ruin it for those who haven't seen it, right? And it just shows you the cycle of poverty. What happens when there's no hope, no dream, no middle class inequality, class warfare, right? And what radicalizes otherwise good, decent people to violence without giving spoiler alerts, right? And also, going back to Squid Games, the human condition, below these people is another group and they end up oppressing him and he becomes completely crazy. It's like the strata of human nature just keeps oppressing and oppressing and oppressing. And here we are. I went to 7-Eleven. My kids take me to go buy them candy, which I shouldn't buy, but I'm a bad dad, so I do. And I'm seeing more and more people, Zaki, with the scratch and sniffs, with
uh,
the lotto tickets. I
wow.
might be the one. Maybe it'll be me. So I think with everything that we're talking about, especially with the Republicans now about to boot off 17 million people from hell, that's going to kill people.
Yeah.
Parasite being the number one movie chosen, it's not just a random fluke or
No.
coincidence.
Yeah. Obviously, the folks who did the voting, it was very much top of mind. And I can't imagine they it's not a coordinated thing. It's just a something that reflects what people are thinking about right now. And people would be asking, people who would be asked to vote for their top picks. Parasite would be in that count somewhere. And I think it's very appropriate that it landed at number one. What a fan.
Uh, I, I want I want to end on a positive note. I kept Zaki longer than I thought I would. For those of you who've tuned in, nearly a half a thousand people. Wow, that's great for especially something on pop culture. We're gonna have this up in an hour or two. We talked about Andor season 1, season 2. We talked about Squid Games, talked about Running Man, and we talked about Parasite. But on a hopeful note, the power of culture, right? Yes, there's dystopian fiction, but what culture does and what stories do is they give us the avenue and language to imagine, where you can imagine a better future, right? And I think before we had Barack Obama, if you recall, Zaki, you and I are old enough, these disaster movies, they had black presidents.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, right? Danny Glover. And then now you have Angela Bassett as the president, Mission Impossible, right? Just small things. But it becomes, something impossible becomes possible once you can imagine it, once it becomes
Yeah.
tangible, once it becomes real. And, Star Trek, someone mentioned Star Trek. That's an imagined future where there's actual equality, egalitarianism, the end to war, right? Diplomacy, where instead of getting in spaceships to create war, you literally are exploring. Star Trek was about exploring. And I want to end on this. Is there any aspect of pop culture, a book, a comic book, a movie that you think is giving us a language, a lens to imagine something better? That there can be something better for Americans.
Well, you mentioned the one that comes most directly to mind, which is Star Trek. I always say Star Trek. I call it competence porn because you're watching just to see people who are good at their job, who get along and who solve problems. And that's something. There's something very reassuring about that. Um, I uh, I think that right now there's the new Superman coming out, and
Have you seen it?
I have not seen it yet, but I'm optimistic, and I think it's actually very relevant to this moment right now, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think we need Superman. I think we need somebody who's showing, hey, you can have all the power in the world, but what makes you truly powerful, what you do with it, and I, you can't really see it, but I have like a Superman shrine. My daughter, she's 8. She came in a couple weeks ago. She's like, Baba, why do you like Superman? And I said, oh, sweetheart, I've waited for this moment for so long.
One tear.
Yeah, really, and what I said, this is what I said to her. I said, what he shows us is that uh, the true power is helping people, and doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you do, whatever you can do, if you do it to help people, that's real power, you know. And that's something meaningful. But I think, yeah, I remember 12 years ago when Man of Steel came, and you and I had discussions because I remember you were like, "The hell is this?" It's like a morose, very depressing thing about this guy who's pretty miserable, and Man of Steel was itself a response to Superman Returns from
Yeah.
2006. Which was trying to be, I would say it failed, but it was trying to be like those older movies. And then this new movie is a response to Man of Steel. And in a weird way, this is politics, right? It's the pendulum.
Yeah.
One direction, it swings the other. You don't get Donald Trump without Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Get Barack Obama without George W. Bush. And I think this is my only point. We always have to be optimistic, and we always have to say that Donald Trump, for as dire as this moment seems, there will be something better on the other side if we have the will to push for it, to fight for it. But this should be the thing that motivates the pendulum in the other direction. I truly believe that. Um, and I don't find I'm not I don't catastrophize by nature, and so that's when I look at all of this, I'm like, people are getting activated. It seemed 6 months ago or 8 months ago, everybody was down for the count. The energy is different now than it was after the election. People are getting pissed off and they're getting motivated, and I think that is going to matter. I think this bill is going to prove, uh, just more than they could have ever anticipated in terms of something that really gets people out and motivated to do big things. I really do believe that.
Speaking about seeing things that you and I never got to see as children, and now we see a brown Muslim man, Zoran Mamdani, who won 56% of the primary vote, who might, inshallah, become the mayor. And we're seeing the smearing of him as well. We're seeing people, elderly white folks in rural counties, march on hot days for the No Kings rally. We're seeing people gather together, try to protect immigrants in LA and other communities. Teachers standing up for their students as mass ICE agents lie to them to kidnap children. And, speaking about Superman, what's remarkable about Superman, my take on him is he's an alien. He's the most powerful creature on Earth. He can, if he wants to, literally dominate all of life and be a dictator and have all of us under his boot. He can crush anyone who he wants. And yet he chooses to hide as Clark Kent, a humble, good-natured, goofy guy who is a reporter, who is a
Journalist.
fantastic reporter, always searching for the truth. And he uses his power to heal, to help. And also, if you read the comic books, he's also an explorer, an adventurer. And when Lex Luthor sees All-Star Frank Quitely's fantastic run, I thought it was one of the best graphic novels of the 21st century. When Lex Luthor gets for a second an ability to see how Superman sees the universe, he becomes so humbled. He goes, "My God, everything is so connected." He gets so overwhelmed, he like turns to puddle, right? And he goes, "You saw all of this, you have all these abilities, and you chose to do this, truth and justice and to help people." So I think a Superman that leans into empathy and kindness and helps people, I think we need that Superman right now. I really do. And, as I've always said, for people who watch this, empathy is a superpower. Kindness is a superpower. I believe every single person has a superpower. Everyone has some gifts. And at the very least, if it means you being kind and empathetic and helping people in your local community, if it means the way you model your language and your behavior in front of your children, that, my friends, is a superpower. Each and every home on every street in every community in every zip code. That's how you win back America and reform it and make it better. And I'll end full circle with a great quote from Rogue One. Rebellions are born from
Oh,
hope.
yeah.
Zaki, shamelessly promote yourself. How can people support you? How can people find you? How can people read you?
Well, while we're talking about Superman, I think this is very relevant. But I should say, when I was a freshman in high school, Lois and Clark, the television series, was airing, and it showed them working in the newspaper, and I was like, that sounds really cool. So I joined the next year. I joined my high school newspaper, and then I became an editor. And after that, when I went to college, I became an editor there. And cut to 25 years later, I'm writing reviews for the San Francisco Chronicle. So literally, I owe where I am right now to Superman.
And you watched it because of Terry Hatcher, but it's okay. I did too. But you
Most
actually use that to do something good. But yeah, stories matter, folks. Stories matter. They give us hope and inspiration, right? And Superman is an iconic figure. There's a reason why he's the most enduring superhero on Earth, and created by two Jewish American writers and artists who based him on, in part, Moses,
Yep.
to speak about stories, the power of stories to influence us to do better, even if they are fictional stories. Zaki, you didn't answer the question. You're terrible at self promotion because you're a brown child of immigrants. Promote yourself.
Well, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Zeki's Corner, Zakis Corner, at all the platforms. The Movie Film Podcast, which I co-host with my partner Brian Hall, who's a television writer. We talk about new movie news every week. Every other week, we do a commentary track where we watch a movie and talk through it. You can read my reviews and commentaries at the San Francisco Chronicle, including a piece coming up next week where I will be talking about the 1978 Superman movie. Check that out. And then I also write for IGN and The Wrap.
And I will link to this for the 600 people who have tuned in. We'll have it up in an hour or two. You can see it from the beginning with the transcript. This has been The Left Hook. I have no paywalls because I'm a fool. I'm like Blanche Dubois. I depend on the kindness of strangers. If you don't have money, it's okay. Just subscribe. If you do have a couple of bucks, please give me a couple of bucks because it's independent media. And also, if you enjoyed this, let me know, and I'll try to rope in Zaki and do this. I want to call it Pop Culture Wars, where I have another human adult to talk to, so my wife can, just like, oh, people liked it. Zoe, you like Pop Culture Wars? All right, so we got one fan. Yeah, we'll do a few more. After Superman comes out. Actually, let's talk about Superman when it comes out, like in a week, 2 weeks. Real quick, Jurassic Park Rebirth sucks
Yes.
or good?
No, I enjoyed it, but I should say I'm an easy mark for the Jurassic movies. So it's no patch on the original. Don't expect that. But if you're looking for some good scares while people run from dinosaurs and some people get eaten by dinosaurs, I think you'll walk out happy.
Better than Lost World, better than Jurassic Park 3, worse.
I think it is, in my opinion, it's better than the last four movies, I would say.
Fair. Jurassic Park, the first movie, is so awesome. I saw it 3 times in the theater. I remember where I was. I just don't understand how they keep effing it up. It's so easy to do it well. Dinosaurs eat people. Throw in some
Yeah.
nice characters, and they still haven't found a way to land it after the first great movie. And it really is a great movie. Go back and watch the first Jurassic Park. I mean, the action, the suspense, the tension, the characters, it really is good. And then you're like, how can they not land this plane, Zaki?
Yeah.
Dinosaurs chasing and eating people with some heart. That's it. But I'm like you. I'm an easy mark. No matter how much I complain, I've seen every single Jurassic Park movie in the theater. I'm gonna go waste my money on this, even though I know it's gonna disappoint me. But as long as you're telling me there's some good dino eating scenes, fine. I'll watch
Gareth,
it.
Gareth Edwards is a fantastic director. I think he elevated the movie because I think he's very
And
skilled.
he's a very skilled director who I always think needs better material. Yeah, better material. Not him. He directs the hell out of it. I just wish he got better scripts given to him by the Hollywood studio. Zaki, thanks so much. Tell your wife and 8,000 kids I appreciate hijacking their father. Inshallah, we'll come back and do another Pop Culture Wars. We'll do the politics of Superman, and we'll piss off all the Zack Snyder fanboys. That'll be awesome. All right, Zaki, take care. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for everyone else.